If you think about that as your goal, okay, then you're going to push hard, right? That's your goal, and you got to focus clearly on that. Okay. Your IELTS score is just a step to help you get to that goal. Okay, if you only focus on IELTS, it's going to take you a long time to get the score you want. Focus on what's really important, and then you're going to get there. Okay, so I've told you a little bit about, that's just a start. But don't worry, I'm also going to be telling you guys about the test and how you can make this most important step for you. To tell you a little bit about myself, I'm the Director of Programs at Global Village, but for the last 12 years, I've been a teacher of English, specializing in test preparation. So I've taught students from all different countries how to pass or how to get the score they need in different English exams. Okay. Now, after that, I went on to design courses at many schools, and now I'm teaching teachers how to be a good teacher for IELTS. Okay. So I'm here today to tell you some of the secrets, to tell you how to succeed in IELTS. I'll tell you right off the bat, I am not an IELTS examiner. Okay? If I was an IELTS examiner, I'm not allowed to tell you. And actually, I don't want to be an IELTS examiner, because then probably I couldn't say some things that I'm going to tell you today that I learned from my experience with the test. Okay? I've taken the IELTS test myself. Okay? I took the test so I can feel your experience, right? I know it's difficult, even for somebody who speaks English as a native language.
What was your score?
Guess.
8.5?
Oh, so close. 9. So if I can get 9, you guys can get 9 too, right? But no, it's a good question, and actually I often tell my students, you know, if my brother grew up in Canada, just like me, if my brother took the IELTS test today, I'm almost sure he wouldn't get a 9. Because as you guys know, it's not only your English, right? You need to know the test. Okay, I'd like everybody to start. If you have a paper and a pencil, you can please take out a piece of paper and a pencil. And just try taking some notes. Hello, this is Mr. Groenbeck calling. Yes, that's G-R-O-E-N-B-E-C-K. If you can please ring me back, it's about the telecommunications conference next week. My number is 011-59786-409. Thank you. Okay, so I have a question. What was the name of the man who was calling? Did anybody catch the name? Mr. something? Right now, I want you to try to write down on your paper the name of the man that I said. What other information did I give? I gave a phone number, yes? Can you please write down the phone number that I said? Feels like IELTS, right? Yeah. Okay, please check your paper. Did anybody write Mr. Groenbeck? Ah, come on! Come on, guys! I told you to take your paper, right? Also remember, if you wrote this, it's incorrect. Why? Capital letters, right? Okay, you guys know you must use capital letters for names on the IELTS exam, or even if you wrote this, you're going to get a big zeros. Okay? It's not fair. But it's IELTS, right? So, the first thing, use capital letters for names. It includes the name of people, names of cities, names of buildings or stores. Anytime you hear a name in the IELTS exam, make sure to use a capital, okay? Can anybody try to remember part of the telephone number I said? We got 011, that's pretty good. Okay, check the number. Did anybody write this down? Unfortunately, even if you're close and you got this, it's going to be a 0 on the IELTS exam. Right? For IELTS, spellings, numbers must be complete, must be perfect. Even spelling, yes. The name? Yeah, don't worry about names so much, because if it's the name of something that everybody knows about, okay, then the spelling, is easy to write. For example, the word if they say the word university, if they were to say Ryerson University, you must write with capital R, capital U. They expect you to know how to spell university, of course. But on the test, they're going to spell for you Ryerson. R-Y-E-R-S-O-N. Okay? They will always give you the spelling of something that is not a common thing that everybody knows. Okay? And that's actually something quite important. Every IELTS listening test will have one question about spelling and one question about numbers. Absolutely. Okay? It's usually in the first part of the listening test. It's a telephone conversation or telephone message. You're always going to have to hear a number and write it down. Hear a name spelled. Right? Somebody spelling their name, and you write down the letter by letter. Okay? Some English letters are not easy, right, to hear, like E and I, and you have to be careful about double letters or double numbers. Like I said, double one. Okay? Expect it always on the IELTS listening test. So, the next GV IELTS listening tip that I'm going to give you is practice this with your friend. Okay? Just have a list and practice spelling a word to your friend, and your friend writes it down. Check to make sure you wrote the same thing. Okay? Your friend says a long number, and you write it down. Okay? You have to practice listening for names and numbers, because this should be an easy question. Right? If you miss these two easy questions, you're missing a big chance to get some easy marks on the IELTS listening. Okay? So practice with your friend, especially if you have difficulty hearing the difference between different numbers. Okay? Do you guys wanna try again? Yeah. Okay, maybe it wasn't fair the first time. Okay, so if you're ready, take out your pencil and paper. Hello, this is Mrs. Chadowitz calling. I'd like you to ring me back. So again, this is Ms. Chadowitz, Mrs. Chadowitz, sorry, C-H-A-D-O-W-I-T-Z. If you can please call me back, it is about an urgent matter. You can call me on 020-44-906-826. Thank you very much. Okay, ready? Ready for your results? Yep. Let's see how you guys did. The name of the person who is calling? Okay, close, close. Okay, did you write this? Did anybody get this one correct? Maybe 5, 6. Okay, good. Make sure you had capital M, capital C, right? And the number. Does anybody feel confident they got the number?
020.
020, what's the next part? 44906-826. Nice job. How many people got this correct?
I guess
All right, a lot more. We have almost 12 people or more getting this correct. What happened, guys? So why is that actually the same number of letters? Same number of letters, same amount of numbers that I said. I spoke them the same speed, just the second time I spoke with a woman's voice, right? But other than that, the same. So what happened? What was the difference? You paid more attention? Okay, good. Is that it?
We were listening. We were listening for something, not listening.
Bingo. You got it. Yeah, two things. I agree with both of you. Very good answers. You were focused, right? And you knew what to focus on. Okay, the first time you were just listening to me kind of in general, right? You weren't, and you could say, I wasn't ready. For Ielts, you have to be ready. But if you're ready just to listen to everything, it doesn't really help you. You have to know what you're listening for. The best advice that I can give you about the Ielts test, and especially from me taking the exam myself, okay, is be ready. And how do you do that? By previewing the questions. On the listening, they're always going to give you some time. You now have 30 seconds to look at the questions. Okay? It depends on the part. Sometimes it's just going to be 10 seconds or 20 seconds. But they'll always give you some time to look at the questions coming up. Okay? Don't look through everything. You want to focus on just those next 5 questions coming up. I need to hear some specific detail. Okay? So look at that, know what you're listening for, and then you're ready to hear that. Okay? You have a much better chance to get it right. By the way, these are not, doesn't look like my phone number here. This is a UK telephone number, which actually, for me writing the test, was the most difficult part for me. Because I almost missed one number. And if it was American or Canadian style phone number, then I know how many numbers are supposed to be there, right? But since it was a UK number, I wasn't sure. Is it supposed to have 10 numbers or 11 numbers? Okay. So one thing that can help you as well, look at the style of UK phone numbers, because they will be very common on the exam. Okay, so this is just an introduction. These are the kind of things that we're going to talk about today and the kind of tips that I'm going to be telling you. Also, for very specific types of questions, I'll show you how Ielts is trying to trick you and what you can do to avoid that. So, shall we start? Yes. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the listening test first. Okay? Just to get a poll of the room, how many people have already done the Ielts test? Okay, so it'll be useful. I'm going to go through what's going to happen on the exam, okay, and also give you some tips about specific things, okay? And this is really important. Like I said, you have to be prepared. The best way to be prepared for the test, of course, you have to improve your English, right? But forget about that. You need to know about the test. Exactly what's going to happen when you go to the exam center. Right? How long do you have for the questions? So we're going to talk about all of that as well. Okay? This is what you can expect when you go to the exam center. Okay? You'll see a whole bunch of chairs. And on one, you have to look for the chair with your name tag on it. Okay? There's a bit more information that you'll see on this paper, but we won't worry about that right now. Okay? Of course, don't forget to take your ID. Take your passport, or you won't be able to write the test anyway. Let's talk a little bit about the listening test. Okay, so for the listening test, the examiner is going to give you 2 pieces of paper. Okay? The piece of paper on the left is what you need only at the beginning. Okay? First, you're going to fill in some details at the top. After that, put this paper away. You don't want to have too many pieces of paper you're working with. Okay? That's your question book, that's your answer book. You're going to have 30 minutes, it's about 30 minutes, you're going to be listening to the CD. Okay? And while you're listening, you should take notes on this booklet. Okay? Remember that anything you write there, it doesn't matter for your score. So write anything that's helpful for you. Okay? It means you can write short forms. Okay? After the CD is finished, then you're going to have 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, you're going to take everything from here and write it down on the answer sheet. Right? Okay? It seems like, well, maybe 10 minutes is a long time. You already answered the questions. Now you just copy the answers from here over to here. Okay? But trust me, it's not a long time. Okay? Because during that time, when you're copying, at that time, you should check your spelling. Okay? You should check your answers exactly to make sure they're correct. But first, make sure that you write everything there, and after that, you check. Okay? You don't want them to say, 1 minute left, and you're only here. Right? Probably the biggest mistake is that you don't finish to copy to this paper. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about this part? Okay, so, and actually, by the way, please feel free to take some notes. I'm going to give each of you a handout with some information, but most of the information I give you today is just up here. So it's up to you to write down what you want. So the IELTS listening test, we have listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So the IELTS listening test tests only listening, right? Wrong. IELTS listening test. It's not only listening. It's going to test listening, of course, but it also tests reading. Why? Well, the questions are in your book. You have to read it. Okay? It tests grammar. Because if your answer is correct information, but the grammar mistake, for example, you didn't write the, 0. It tests your vocabulary. Okay? Because if you don't know the word they said, it's impossible to write it down, except for the spelling question. Finally, it's going to test your spelling. Right? So actually, it's impossible to test only listening, because you have to read something and you have to write something to finish the test. So actually, the listening test is testing all of these things, and that's why it can be so difficult. Okay? Now, I've been a teacher for many students with Arabic as their first language, and I have a feeling for many people here it's maybe the same. Problem? Yeah. Of course, English spelling is not as easy and logical as Arabic spelling. Okay? So it's something that you need to improve if you want to get the best score possible on your listening test. Okay, let's take a look at a specific question. Okay. And remember, my tip to you was preview. So notice that each thing you have to listen to is put into chunks. So for the first one, this says questions 21 to 23. So it means when you listen to the very first section, you're only responsible to answer these 3 questions. Then there's going to be a pause, and then you answer the next questions. Okay? So the most important thing is when you have the time, just focus on these 3 questions. Yeah?
Well, it's not all the time. Sometimes they ask you for one recording, one piece of recording, and they will ask you a 2-part question.
Yeah, but they'll always let you know beforehand. Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes there'll be two different question styles, but at the top it's going to say, this recording is for questions 21 to 25.
I know, but they look the same, right? It is separated into pieces.
Yeah, sometimes you can't go just by how it looks on the paper. You have to listen to it. Yeah, it happened to you. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about what do you do when you're preparing. How can you prepare these kind of questions? Okay. The first thing that I want to look at is try to understand the questions in maybe a little bit of a different way. Okay? Try to look at the answer choices and interpret them. Rephrase them. Okay? So here's some things that we're going to do. Number one, we're going to rephrase the question and answers. Can you think of a different vocabulary word for the same meaning? Okay? Another thing that you're going to do is look for positives and negatives. Okay? Especially if the question is asking about the speaker's opinion, which is very common. Okay? Next, we're going to look for the same words and meanings. And finally, we're going to guess the answers. Okay? If you guess the answers, then what you're listening for is, am I correct? Right? So you're listening for something more specific. Let's look at some examples. So we're going to look at the first question. So it says, generally, Rosanna finds the Wednesday program. What is this question really asking? Can you say it in different words? What is... Excellent. Okay, what's Rosanna's opinion about the Wednesday program? Okay. Now we're going to look at these words here. I'm just trying to remember what comes up next. Yeah, so we can just forget what it says. We're listening for Rosanna's opinion about the Wednesday program. Okay. Now look at these parts. We have some opinion words. I told you to think about positives and negatives. So how about the first one? It says worthless. Is that positive or negative? Look at the last part though. Less. Negative. Less is going down. Yeah. So we have to do some interpretation, but we can see worthless actually means it's worth less, right? It's not worth very much. Very slow. Positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. Valuable?
Positive.
Good. Okay? And on your paper, you can just put these marks. Okay. Now, I think the next thing we're going to look at this question here. Okay. She arrives home late. Okay, I can understand that. She doesn't get on with her course tutors. Okay, she doesn't like the tutor. And what about this one? It affects her work on the next 2 days. What are the next 2 days? Thursday and Friday. He says, how do we know? The class is on Wednesday. Okay? So this actually requires us to look, not only looking at one question by itself. We're looking at two questions together. And this is really, really powerful. This is one of the most powerful tricks you can use for any multiple choice questions. This will be important. The last thing we're going to do is look for the same word. I already kind of gave it away. Again, now let's look at question 22 and 23. And do we notice anything that's the same between them? Tutor appears in both questions. Okay? That should make us say, aha! Right? Ielts is trying to trick you. But you know their tricks. Let me explain. So when we do this first question now, we're gonna listen to the tone of the voice, right? If she says, I want to talk about my Wednesday program, right? Is the answer gonna be C? No. Right? Oh, the Wednesday program, oh. She likes it, right? Okay, so we know the answer will be C. So I think this is really important because we're listening for the tone of voice to know the feelings of a person. And this question is asking about someone's feelings. Okay? If we focus on that, then we're not going to be tricked by the words. Okay? The trick here is she says the word worth when she's speaking. Right? Oh, I actually think the course is very worthwhile. Right? She says the word worthwhile. Well, worthwhile is actually the opposite of worthless, but it sounds the same. So I hear worth, some people will circle A. It's a trick. But if you're listening for the voice, you can see, oh, actually, by her voice, I can see she likes the course. So we know we have to choose the positive one, which is the correct answer. Now, why did I say the tutors is important? Okay, yeah. So just to go on about that. For multiple choice questions, remember I said the word worth. Okay, was the trick. So the GB Ielts listening tip number 5 is for multiple choice questions, listen to the meaning. Don't listen to the words. The words are going to trick you every time. They're going to put some word, right? How did they make answer A? They wrote down some word that you can hear in the listening, but it's not the correct answer. So that's the trick. Okay. So for when you're doing a multiple choice question, that's why before the question, you try to think of what's the meaning of this sentence, right? Instead of focusing on the words and listening for the words. That's really important. What about the tutor thing? So how about number 22 or 23? So number 22C. Do you think it's the correct, how many people think that 22C is the correct answer? How many people think 23A is the correct answer? Correct, you got it. Why? How do I know that? I didn't even listen yet. Yeah, the connection between the questions, right? And also, you have to think like the person who made the test. Think like the IELTS test maker. Right? They know that on the CD, she's going to say something about tutors. So they hope that you're still looking at this question and you hear tutor and you say, oh, let's see. Incorrect. And you missed question 23 already. It's past. So when you see similar words in two different questions, we can guess we should really focus on that word and understanding what do they say about the word tutor. It's going to be very important, we know. So listen for what do they say about tutor. Okay? Now why do we say it's probably not C? Well, we said she has a positive opinion about the course. If she's fighting with the tutor, that's not going to be a very positive experience, right? Okay. If she changes her course, she may not have the same tutor. Does it sound right? Yeah, it's reasonable, right? Because usually we don't have the same tutor teaching many different courses. Okay. So it's logical and it follows, it matches with the other questions, what we thought. Let's have a listen, and I'll let you guys hear what I'm talking about.
Section 3. You will hear a female student inquiring about changing her course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25.
Okay, here's your time. So at this time, we're examining all of the questions. tutor is here, there, I have to listen to a tutor. What's the next 2 days? Oh, Thursday and Fridays. Okay. This is the time when you're
Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hi, my name is Rosanna McLaren. I'm a bit early, but I have an appointment to see the assistant registrar, Andy Matthews, at 10 a.m.
Hi, I'm Andy Matthews. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. My tutor advised me to come to see you about changing my course.
Yes, I've had an email from your tutor, David Vine. Let me just call it up. Here we are. It says, Tutee Rosanna McLaren is on the Wednesday part-time course and wants to change to the distance learning program. Have you any problems with the course itself?
Oh no, I love it. I think the course is really worthwhile. The theoretical sessions once a week on Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. are really good.
You have 2 2-hour sessions then?
Yes, that's it.
Positive, right?
And I have to say,
Positive.
I think the practical sessions from 4 through to 9 in the fashion workshops are also good fun. But I am finding it all very tiring, and it makes me too exhausted for my work on Thursdays and Fridays.
You work the other 4 days of the week?
Yes, and some Saturdays.
I see. So, what do you want to do?
I'd like to change to the program with the distance learning component instead of the Wednesday sessions.
Yes, that is a possibility. I see from your tutor, Dr. Vine, that he has no problem with this, but you realize it's possible you'll have a different tutor.
Yes, I'm aware of that. It's a shame, because he's a very good tutor. What do I need to do now?
First, we just need you to fill in this transfer form and the claim form for the reduction in fees.
Oh, I didn't realize it was cheaper.
Oh yes, it's £1,000 less a year.
It gets even better.
Okay. Did you hear what I was talking about? So notice again, if I didn't take the time to understand what the next 2 days really means, she doesn't say the next 2 days. She says Thursdays and Fridays. So I need to take the time before to know that that's what I'm listening for. Okay. Let's look also again at question 23. Look at option B and C. Does anyone notice anything about B and C, the meaning of those two?
Somehow connected.
Yeah, they're somehow connected, definitely. Even more than that. So, why do I want to change my mind? Because I regret changing. Now, some questions on Ielts, we can choose 2 answers. How about this question? We can only choose 1 answer. So if B and C have the same meaning, we can't choose both. So we can't choose either. And be careful, because sometimes the meaning will be very similar but a little bit different. In this case, it can't be. The answer for this one is A. She said, if you change, you realize you may not have the same tutor. And she said, well, actually, he's really good. Any other questions about what we listened to or these questions? Okay, great. Okay, let's move on to look at the next part. Okay, can everybody read that? Okay. Goes. Okay, so what do we notice first about questions 24 and 25? Good. That's really important. Okay, don't forget to read the instructions carefully, and there's going to be something in bold. Choose 2 letters, A to E. When I change my answers to the answer sheet, where do I write those answers? Well, I'm going to write one of them next to number 24 and one of them next to number 25. It doesn't matter which way I put it. Okay? Now, the reason why I tell you this is because sometimes you have to write 2 letters for the answer to one question. Other times, the 2 letters will be 2 different questions. Okay? It's the same, except this question is worth 2 marks. Right? What I'd like you guys to do, we are going to listen, but before we listen, I want you to tell me the correct answers to these questions. Impossible? No. I want you guys, before we listen, and I want you to guess which are the 2 correct answers there. Okay, I'll give you guys 30 seconds to think about it. I'll read it in case somebody can't. Which 2 good things about the distance learning component are mentioned? A, course length, B, evening seminars, C, course tutors, D, course flexibility, or E, time factor. Okay, have a look. Think about your answers. Okay, let's see what you guys thought. So, how about back here? What one do you think could be correct?
I think A and D.
So you're going with D?
Time factor.
Okay. So why did you say D?
I said E.
Oh, sorry, you said E. Yeah. So why time factor? Why do you think that could be right?
Because we even heard about the conversation. We talk about times and.
Good. Yeah, she said she's really busy and she's working, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that could be a reason why she wants to change to that. Okay, good thinking. Yes. C, course tutors. Okay. Because she was talking about tutors. Okay, it's a good thought. We're going to check that, but be careful because remember, they're going to mention tutors in many questions, and we already had an answer about tutors. But yeah, she was concerned about the tutors, so it could be continuing the same theme. So it's a good thought. Any other ideas? Yeah.
Course flexibility.
Course flexibility. Why?
Because she has a work and she can't also doing here.
Okay, because she has to work. Something flexible would be good for her, right? I like all of your answers, but you guys are thinking about the conversation that just happened, right? I want you guys to look more at the question. Yeah.
Well, school distance learning. So.
Yeah, distance learning. What does that mean?
So you learn maybe in your home.
In which way?
Usually by the computer.
On the computer, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's the meaning of a distance learning course. You're learning at home, on the computer. So what does that mean? That kind of class, usually, when do you study?
At home, whenever you want.
When? Anytime you want, right? Sounds flexible. And how long does the course take? Yeah, you study longer, you're going to finish it faster. You study short every day, it'll take you a long time. That's why I say think logically. Just use what you know and choose the answer that seems the most logical for this situation. Okay? In distance learning, do we have evening seminars? No, maybe webinar. Maybe web seminar, but not a seminar, right? We don't go somewhere, it's not distance anymore. Right? Of course, tutors, well, you do have tutors on an online course, but you know, it's not face-to-face, so the person is not always exactly the most important thing. Course length, sometimes it could take you longer if you do it on a course online. So looking at this, course flexibility and time factor seem like logical answers. So when you're taking the time, just guess based on your logic. Okay, you might be right. Okay, maybe you won't be, right? But we're going to listen and check, was I right? Okay. You thought maybe it has something to do with the tutors because that's what they're talking about. So now when you listen, you have something specific you're listening for, which is really going to help you. You're listening to see if the tutors for the distance learning are really good. Okay? So let's have a listen, and we're going to check what we thought.
Can I start the distance learning program from now?
I don't see why not. I just need to get a signature from your tutor, which should take only a short time. I'll email it to him now, and then he can sign it and put it in the internal mail.
Okay.
But I also need to go through with you what is involved in the distance learning program to make sure you are clear about everything.
Well, I understand I attend the weekend course once a month, and that I can book a bench in a fashion workshop at any other time.
You have a computer at home for the distance learning?
Oh yes. I have the necessary equipment for making video calls over the internet already. It's the flexibility of the distance learning over the internet that is very useful. And what makes it even more interesting is that I don't have to spend a lot of time traveling to and from the university on the Wednesday. I can adapt it to my own routine, as I will be able to do the theory over the internet from home when I want. The same is true of booking a tutorial online using Skype.
Yes, it is amazing, isn't it? It's in its infancy, but it's been up and running for a year now, and it's going rather well.
Can I just ask if it's possible to have a face-to-face tutorial at any time as well?
There is no reason why you shouldn't be able to.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation,
What was the last thing they said? Yeah, can I have a face-to-face tutorial if I want to? Okay. Do you see a trick here? Yeah. Were we right before?
Yeah.
Yes, we were right. So the last thing is for people who didn't catch those two things because they were very close together. She said, oh, it's because of the flexibility, and oh, what I also like is the time factor. It'll save me a lot of time. These two, she mentioned, boom, boom. If you missed one of them, at the very end of the listening, she said tutor. So they're hoping that if you didn't have another answer at that point, you circle C and get that one wrong. Okay? Do you have a question about it? Yeah. Just that they just said it's possible to have a course tutor, but they didn't say that it was one really good thing about the distance learning. Okay? So actually, this time we were right. Why? Because we were thinking logically, right? IELTS is an academic exam. It's not going to have something in there that doesn't make sense, that doesn't match with the real world. Okay? So in many cases, you should guess based on what's logical and what makes sense. And then we have something specific to listen and check if I was right. Okay, we're going to go on to practice that with the bottom part here. Hopefully everybody can read that. Okay. So first, of course, don't forget to read the instructions. We're writing no more than 3 words or a number for each blank. Okay. And what I'd like you to do, even for this type of question, fill in the blanks, we're going to listen. Before we listen, we're going to think logically and make a guess. Okay? I'll read this for you, and as I read, I want you to write down a word for 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. What word do you think logically could go in the blank? Course assessment. Students are required to keep a written blank and present a paper monthly. 30% of the marks are allocated to the blank. Each student has to keep a blank portfolio, which in the end accounts for blank of their marks. Each student is also expected to present at least one piece of work at a blank. Okay. Take about 30 seconds and write down your answer. I like this answer, yeah?
Assignment.
Assignment, exactly. Okay, so it's going to be something like report or assignment there. Okay, now we're just going to write those words, and then when we listen, we can check, do we hear those words? Okay. 27. What do you guys guess? Okay. Some kind of... Yeah, it's going to be a noun because of the noun. Okay, good. So you're looking at the grammar. Excellent. Well, let's see what it says. Remember I said think logically. 30% of the marks are allocated to the blank. In a class, what 30% of the marks, that's a lot. What's usually going to, what's that usually?
Quizzes.
A project, a quiz, research, could be.
Attendance.
Remember 30% is a lot? What do you usually have at the end of the class? Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's going to be the final test or something like that. Or the midterm exam. Okay? Yeah, when I was in university, the midterm exam was 30% and the final was 50%. Something like that. Okay, let's look at number 28. A student has to keep a blank portfolio. Wow, okay, there's two clues here. Or keep a and something portfolio. Portfolio? Okay, good question. Portfolio is like a book where you keep your work that you show people. So, for example, what kind of person keeps a portfolio?
Interior design.
Okay, yeah, like a designer. So a designer is going to have a book where they have photos of their designs. Okay, this is their portfolio. Okay, or a photographer will have some photos showing pictures they've taken. Okay? So that's really going to help us if we know portfolio, what kind of thing goes in there. It's a good question. I would say it's possible, but not very common. So her question, just to repeat her question is, let's say this one, the answer is report. Could the answer for 28 also be report? Well, you know, Ielts is possible, but probably not common. Okay, so usually they're going to have different words for each answer. Okay. Good question. 29. Can you tell me the answer for number 29? So, accounts for blank of their marks. So still talking about the portfolio. So what are we talking about? Exactly, it's going to be a percentage, right? Okay, they talked about 30% is for this, and okay, the portfolio is, so let's just take a guess. Let's say 25%. Okay? That's going to help us. We know it's a percent here. So first, we know I have to write percent. I already wrote that. I don't have to write it again when I listen. And I know I'm just listening for the number. Okay? And finally, each student is also expected to present at least a piece of work at a blank. What's going to go in there? Where do I present something usually?
Time.
So time. Is it time? Could it be a time? So I'm gonna say I know for usually we could say if I present at 8 o'clock, I can say for sure it's not a time for this one. How do I know? Because of good. Okay? We don't say at 3:30, it's not gonna fit. It could be a place, good. Well, at least now we know, right? We know it's a place, so when we listen, we can listen for that specifically. Want to try? Okay, we already have some guesses, so now I'm just checking if my guesses are correct. Okay. Hopefully for 29, everybody already wrote percent, so we don't have to write it down again. And let's listen.
You have have some time to look at questions 26 to 30.
Okay, so in this time on the test, that's what we're doing. We're looking at each blank and make my guess about what goes there.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 26 to 30.
What about the assessment for the distance learning? I take it that it's the same as for the other program?
Let me see. Each month you are expected to keep a written course diary and to present a seminar paper, and at the very end of the course there will be a written exam which will account for 30% of the total marks.
What about the coursework? How much does it account for?
The design portfolio, which you need to present at the end, accounts for 50%. I would point out just one thing, and that is that on the distance learning program, some tutors like to see the design portfolio twice each term to make sure you're on the right track. But of course you can take it in at any time to show your tutor. And as part of the assessment for the portfolio, you have to present at least one fashion item at a fashion show at the end of the course.
Is there anything else?
No, that's it.
Thank you for all your help.
No problem. Hope it all works out well for you now.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay. So, was it helpful that we prepared and looked at the questions before? And we were actually very close, right? Actually, you guys guessed many of the answers before we listened. If you didn't listen, you're okay, you got it correct. Right? I think actually one guy here said the answer for this one, it was? Here. Design portfolio. Right? We guessed that answer before. How about this one, number 27? Okay. I hear different, so 30% of the marks are allocated to the... Okay, good. So here's some different answers. The answer should be written exam. Okay. Now how about if I wrote down exam? Do I get any points? Did I get it correct? Right. Sorry. How about if I write test? Is it correct? Written test, correct? It's the same meaning.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, so actually this is the opposite from what I told you before. Okay? For a multiple choice question, you listen for the meaning, and it's going to be in different words. For the fill in the blank questions on Ielts, you must write down exactly what you heard on the CD. Okay? So if you write down written test, it's the same meaning as written exam, but it's wrong, because that's not what they said. Okay? So that's one part to be really careful about. All right, also looking at this part, let's do the rest of the answers. Number 26 was... Good, course diary. It was necessary to get both of those words because he said a written course diary. So we have to put course diary to get the full points. Okay? Number 29 was? 50%. Good. How do I write that on the paper? Should I write F-I-F-T-Y? How about if I write 50? Is it correct? No, it's okay to write 50. Okay? Or you can write the word, okay? Now how about percent? Can I write this one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please think about that. Is it okay to write P-E-R-C-E-N-T? don't do that. You will get a point if you write P-E-R-C-E-N-T. You'll get the point for IELTS, but don't do that. It's extra work. You don't want to do extra work, right? Come on, guys, make it easy for yourself, right? Symbols are okay for your answer. So if they say dollar, use the dollar sign. Don't write D-O-L-L-A-R. Right? It's just extra work for you guys, and you're going to get the same number of points. Right? Especially if the number is 1,140 and you try to write it all out. Okay, don't bother. Okay? So it's okay to use numbers, symbols, and abbreviations for things like centimeter, meter, Mr., street, and so on. Okay? Any questions about that? Yeah. Sorry?
Any mistake in the spelling?
Any mistake in the spelling and it is wrong. Yes, that is right. Okay? So yeah, for example here, if you wrote written and it's spelled W-R-I-T-E-N, T-T-E-N, it's going to be wrong. Okay? So it's tricky. It is difficult. Okay? The reason why they do that is because they want to make sure that you really know the word. Right? I don't just hear diary and I don't know the meaning of diary and I write D-I-A-R-Y. It's lucky. Right? You can't be lucky on IELTS. Okay? You have to know the word and be able to spell that. And that's the reason. Like, it's not testing just listening. If you understand the meaning and you know the meaning, but you don't know the spelling. Okay? But that's why you really have to be careful about your spelling. Do a lot of practice IELTS tests and see which words are coming up again and again. Maybe allocate or portfolio is going to come up again and again. Write them down and practice the spelling of those words. Okay. Looking at another one here. Just very quickly, because I'd like to move on to other sections. Of course, one other common thing that we have on the IELTS test is going to be a map or a floor plan of some kind. Okay. Now, the one thing to help you with this is again the previewing. Okay. Look around the map. Find some important places, right, and think about what they're going to say. Okay? Here says blank for children. So maybe you can guess, what word could go in there. And it's going to help you to hear it when it comes up.
Section 2. You will hear a talk by a counsellor on plans for the development of an old industrial site. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 13.
Look at 11. What should go there? Hasn't been used for over a blank. Well, has not been used for blah blah blah. Usually comes a time, right? Here's a training center and a something. Okay. Sponsorship has been received from a number of. Who usually sponsors something?
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 13.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Councillor Norma Boyd, and welcome to this exhibition about the development of the old paper mill factory and gasworks site, which has been lying unused for more than a decade. There has been pressure on the council to use the land to build a training centre and a small business park. However, we have been encouraged by local people to create an open area for the benefit of the community, providing much needed space for recreation. And I now have pleasure in announcing that the plans for the creation of a park, to be called Park Royal, and for flats, have now been approved. I'm also pleased to announce that we have secured sponsorship from local organisations. More detailed plans of the developments are available from the council website, details of which are in your pack. In the meantime, I'd just like to take you through the plan here on the screen.
Okay, let's check the answers quickly. Number 11. Over a decade. Decade is correct. Okay, so we knew we were listening for an amount of time, right? So when we're guessing, we can think of other possibilities. It could be a decade, a year, a day, a week. Okay? But as land has not been used for a year is possible, a month is even short, right?
I had a correct answer.
Exactly. Those words, so decade, century, for 10 years, 100 years, those are going to be really common and important words on the exam. So those are the kind of things that, yeah, you should practice before the exam. So remember, 10 years, decade, D-E-C-A-D-E. 100 years, century, C-E-N-T-U-R-Y. Those are going to be very important words that will come up again and again, and you'll use them also on the Ielts writing test. Okay. Number 12, a training center and a?
Small business.
So close. Small business was 2 of the correct words, but we need 3. Small business center. Park, they said. Yeah. Okay. So that's a difficult one because we have to hear 3 words. But she did say almost exactly this sentence, and we only have to write the exact 3 words she said. Okay. Now when you write them down on your paper, should you write S-M-A-L-L?
No more than 3 words.
No more than 3
He
words.
doesn't say exactly 3 words.
That's true. Yeah, we need to listen to the sentence and see how many words it is, right?
Small businesses. Not good.
No, because it has to be exactly what they said in the sentence. So if they use 3 words in the sentence, we must write down 3. It's tricky.
It's not clear instructions.
Okay, it's a very good question. So yeah, what does it mean when it says write no more than 3 words for each answer? Okay, when you see this instruction, it always means that the answer could be 1 word, could be 2 words, could be 3 words. But we don't know until we listen. Okay? So yeah, sometimes if we haven't done the test before, what does that mean, right? So that's an excellent question. To be clear, when it says write no more than 3 words, it means the answer could be 1 word, could be 2 words, or could be 3 words. Okay? We don't know until we listen and hear their sentence and just copy their sentence to the page. Okay? Number 13 was, we said we usually sponsor something as a company. Okay? But they didn't, that was the answer, but they didn't say the word company. They said, excellent. Okay, the answer here is a number of local organizations. Okay. Now notice in that sentence they didn't say a number of. They said something like many. So it's a little bit of a change to tricky. Okay. And local organizations, that's a difficult thing to hear and write down. What I want to tell you is when you write it on your paper, don't write down small because you can write SM stop. After I can remember the word was small. Organizations, if question 12, yeah, ORG is fine. If the question 12 is organizations, maybe the answer for question 13 is coming and I'm still O-R-G-A-N-I. Okay? It happens. Okay? So just write O-R-G, maybe O-R-G-S period, and then focus again. Okay? You can't write and listen 100% at the same time. And that's another one of the tricks in the Ielts listening test. Okay, and don't forget, for the fill in the blanks, you're listening and writing the exact words that they say on the CD. We're going to go ahead and do this one, and actually we're only going to do the first 2 questions here. So I'd like you to look at the first one and the second one. And I'm going to play the audio now.
Section 2. You will hear a tour guide.
This is the last one we're going to do for the listening.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your very own tour of the British Library on this lovely afternoon. My name is Tony Walters, and I'm your guide for today. Could I please see your tickets for the guided tour? I'd also like to remind you that any tickets bought today do not include a visit to the reading rooms. I'm afraid we don't do visits on Fridays, or any weekday during working hours, so as not to disturb the readers. But if you do want to see those rooms, the only day there are tours is on Sundays. So, I don't want anyone to be disappointed about that today. Okay? Thank you. Right, we'll start with a brief introduction. As many of you know, this is the United Kingdom's National Library, and you can see that this is a magnificent modern building. It was first designed by Sir Colin St. John Wilson in 1977, and inaugurated by Her Majesty the Queen more than 20 years later in 1998. As you can see, the size is immense, and the basements alone have 300 kilometres of shelving, and that's enough to hold about 12 million books. The total floor space here is 100,000 square metres. And as I'll show you, the library houses a huge range of facilities and exhibition spaces. And it has a...
Oh! Trick! Okay guys, you fell for the most common trick in every English listening test. Okay? Is we heard two things. We heard Friday and we heard Sundays. Which one was the correct answer? The first one or the second one? You got it. The most common trick on any English listening test. They will give you, we know we're listening for a day, they will give you 2 days. So what happens when I hear Fridays? I start with F. Sundays? Already passed. I'm not listening right now. I'm writing Fridays. Okay? So, another good reason I should only write F, maybe. Okay. But, also, beware. They're trying to trick you by giving you something that sounds correct first. We can call, and actually test makers call this a word distractor. They try to distract you and pull your attention away, and then you miss the correct answer coming up next. Okay, the correct answer was the second day they mentioned. Okay? The library was officially opened in
1887.
Okay? Same trick. Same trick. I'm sorry. Ielts is terrible.
1988.
Okay, 1977 was the first thing they said, but what they said is they started building, or they started construction on this day. And it was opened a decade later in 1998. So the correct answer for this one is 1998. Ielts, they tricked me again. Okay? Well, now you know. Now you know what they do. Okay? So you're not going to fall for this trick on the test. Okay? Lastly, I want to talk about this one. Again, also they mention many different numbers before they mention the number for the correct answer. They're doing it again. Okay, what's the correct answer here?
100,000.
Okay, 100,000. So on my answer sheet, it's okay to write 100,000 meters square. Correct? No, not correct. What's the point? It's already here. So if we put it here, what I said, it's going to say 100,000 meters square. And that will be a 0 on the test. Okay? So another trick for IELTS is if you have a word, or for example, street or centimeters, some measurement here, or for example, dollar sign here, percent sign here, you don't need it. So don't write that, don't write meter squared on your answer sheet, or it's going to be wrong. Okay? It's double. But the most important trick I told you is the word distractors. Okay? Don't jump for the first answer and I got it, and write it down, because maybe the correct answer is coming up right next. Okay? Okay, so let's just review what we talked about the listening test very quickly. So don't forget to use capital letters for the names of people, places, buildings, okay? Days. So if you wrote Sundays with small s, it's wrong. Okay? Practice the spelling and numbers with your friend, okay? Say the name, your friend writes it down and check. Okay, the most important thing, read the questions, think about what the answers are going to be before you listen. Listen to the tone of voice of the speaker, especially when the question is an opinion question. When you do a multiple choice question, you listen for the meanings. Don't listen for the exact words. That's going to trick you. Okay? Before, use logic. Take a guess. Okay? Maybe you're going to be correct, and if you're not correct, it helps you to listen, it helps you to focus on what you're listening to. Okay, use shorthand for the notes and symbols. Don't write the whole word because you can't write and listen at the same time. Okay? Fill in the blanks question is very different kind of listening than a multiple choice question. Many people don't know that. They listen in the same way for different kinds of questions. When you're doing the multiple choice, you're listening for meanings. When you're doing fill in the blanks, you need to listen and just catch the exact words they say and write that down. Finally, it's all about focus. Focus, focus, focus. Okay? If your mind thinks about something different for even 5 seconds, the answer is gone. You missed it. So keep focus, and that's the most difficult thing because the listening test is 30 minutes of focus, focus, listen, listen. Okay? It's not easy. I told you I wrote the IELTS test. So I told you I got 9 points, 9.0. So on the listening test, there are how many questions?
40.
There's going to be 40 questions. How many did I get correct? I told you my score is 9.0.
40. Or between 38 and 48.
Yeah, good. Actually, I'm almost sure that I missed something. I told you the British phone number. I'm sure I couldn't catch one digit. I didn't know if it was there or not. It's possible that I made a mistake. I got 39 out of 40. But my score was still 9.0. Okay? And actually, every English listening test that I've ever marked or I've ever taught is the same. Because 9.0 means native speaker. Even a native speaker makes a mistake here. Right? Just, oh, I was thinking about something else, right? Okay? Because I'm a teacher, I was thinking about, okay, how can I teach this question to my students? And, oh no, I missed it. Okay? So it happens. Don't worry. If you miss something on the listening test, remember, you don't need a perfect score to get the score that you need. You don't need a perfect score to get perfect on IELTS listening. Okay? With some tests, you can get 38 out of 40, will still be 9.0. Okay? Now you guys in this room need 7.0 on the listening Maybe you want 7.5. How many questions do you have to get correct? It's important to know that. Because if you don't know what 7 means, then it doesn't help you. Well, actually, maybe you're hoping that you get 35 out of 40. That would be really, really good. 35 is up like 8. Okay. So actually, it's about 30. Okay. If you get 30 out of 40 on IELTS listening, that's going to usually be a 7. Okay. So what I want to tell you is, when you're listening, don't worry if you miss something. Don't worry if you can't get one of the answers. Okay? You're allowed to miss 10 questions. Okay? And the worst thing you can do is that you don't focus because you're doing this. Oh, I missed it. I'm thinking about my mistake. Okay? Then you make a mistake on the next 2 questions because of it. Just don't worry. Let it go. Okay? Keep your focus on the next question and the question after that, and you'll do really well. Okay? Alright guys, I'll just finish there for the listening part. Does anybody have some quick questions about the listening test before we take a little break? Yes?
Can we skip from section to section during test?
Why?
Just for sake, what's the...
Yeah, like I said, I don't recommend it. In most tests, I would say, yeah, it's a good idea to look at the whole test, so you know what's coming up. For the IELTS listening, I would say, don't do that.
Oh, this is allowed?
It's allowed, yes. You can turn, after they say you can open your test book now and they start the CD, you can look anywhere you want.